Hello and welcome to another episode of Discover with Sbenati. I'm your host, Dr. Halim Sbenati, and today we have an exciting episode. We have an exciting guest, and just as usual, we only have exciting guests. That's the only people that we bring on to Discover with Sbenati. Today's absolutely no exception to the rule. We have Courtney Sunday, who is an author and an adventurer, and she has traveled the world in pursuit of whatever that she wants to do. I don't want to ruin it for her. She will talk about that. She's an author. She has 2 books. One book that's out, another one's coming out very soon. And the one, it's called, you're going to have to remind me on the title, it's called Mindfulness for...
PMS, Hangovers, and Other Real-World
Situations.
Situations.
Hangovers, and Other real-world situations. And she is here today to talk about those 2 books and to tell us a little bit about herself and what she has gone through in her life and a little bit of message on how to overcome those obstacles as she went along. So, Courtney, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm very glad and happy that you're here. Without any further ado, please introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you're doing right now.
Sure. My name is Courtney, and both of my books are actually out right now.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're both available. Yeah. No. It's fine. So I'm a writer by trade. I'm an editor. I'm a wellness coach, and I teach meditation to corporations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's a lot.
A bunch of different entrepreneurial efforts at this point of my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you manage through all that? So you're doing a lot of things
yes,
right now.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking I've always had good organizational skills, but I think not being on my phone a lot is incredibly helpful
right.
to get a lot done.
I'm guilty.
No,
of
you know
on the
what I
phone a
mean?
lot,
Yeah,
yes.
just having, I obviously have my moments, but I've done something where I don't have any social media access on my phone until noon. So I can't check email, I can text or do something like that or be on my GPS or something very basic.
I got you.
But I can't use it as a distraction method.
And what do you use to block yourself?
You can use your own phone. There's literally things that will help block all of the functions. Okay. I know. I found that out about 3 or 4 months ago, and I felt like it was this game changer. Because to feel, even though obviously I could override it if I wanted to, but to know that my phone is reminding me to just get other things done.
Right.
At least until noon, and again, I can take some time in the afternoon to procrastinate if I want to.
Right.
But I feel like if I set myself up well, I'm less likely to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So then you're not using social media to promote yourself, right?
I do use it. Oh. No. I absolutely do. I'm just saying, I'm not using it to scroll through and
I got you.
Especially because I found like everybody else, I would sometimes get up in the morning and just scroll, right? Of course. And just look through things, yes. And then I wasn't being as productive, and I also wasn't feeling as uplifted. So I felt like it was an important thing to check myself on that.
And what kind of thing have you noticed in terms of a difference when you started blocking yourself up until noon?
Oh, gosh, I feel that there's a sense of calmness that comes with it. Seriously, I think our phones can cause quite a bit of anxiety. They really can. Feeling like we have to respond to people, feeling like we have to be connected to people we don't even know can sometimes help us from connecting to people who are actually right in front of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I noticed that too about myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you noticed, but I'm so much into social media that I feel like I have to be on the phone 24/7.
Yeah.
And that steals a lot of the time from people that are actually in my vicinity.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's so many of us. Mm-hmm. I think, and I don't know if my technique would work for everybody in terms of making them even feel the same way, but I think we can all check in and notice if it's actually doing for us what we want it to be doing.
Right.
Like if the phone is serving us or if we're serving the phone.
That's a good question to ask yourself. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then besides blocking the social media, what else do you do to stay organized?
I have lists. I'm a big list maker, so I have agendas, I have journals. I hold myself accountable for what I say I'm going to do, and I think every entrepreneur has that in them. I've talked to people who work for people and say that they need to work for somebody else to have that accountability, and I think people who work for themselves and enjoy the process are people that know that they have to do what they say they're going to do that morning, that week, that month, whatever. It's the only way you can make money as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You can't have any other way around it.
So what kind of accountability measures are you taking?
I just think Gretchen Rubin have you heard of her? She's an author.
No.
She has this whole like inner or outer accountability model, and she said that there are some people that are very driven by their inner accountability and other people that aren't. So I think this is just in my nature, to be quite honest.
Okay.
I think I'm not very driven by somebody saying, Courtney, you have to do that. Like I think in some ways I have a bit of a rebellious nature where I think if somebody told me it was really important, I'd be like, well, is it?
Right.
But
and
feeling
who are
like
you to tell me?
Exactly.
Yeah,
But feeling like I think it's important and I feel like it's going to drive my career forward is something that actually helps me to move forward.
And if you don't follow something that you said to yourself, hey, I'm going to do it, what do you do?
I just feel disappointed, I'd say. I just think it's like it's like, I'm sure you have this with yourself. It's just like an inner feeling that you just don't feel like you got enough done that you wanted to do for yourself, even if it's something as simple as like going to the gym and you didn't go to the gym. And even though it feels awesome to sit on the couch, there's a part of you that's like, oh, like, I wish I had gone to the gym. But I mean,
you don't punish yourself by saying to yourself, if you don't do this like thing, then you have to donate $100 to
that's a really
to a
good
foundation
one.
that you don't support.
I like
or
that.
something like that.
That is a good idea. Maybe I will in the future.
Because that would hold yourself accountable, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like the idea. Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing multiple things, and you have to-do lists. You have what kind of calendar are you using?
I'm old-fashioned. I write things like
you write them
with
down.
a pen.
Okay.
Like
I was going to
school.
I was going to ask you what app are you using?
Yeah. No, I actually write them down.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you write them down.
And I went to a journal workshop last month for people helping us to get organized in different ways, and it was actually really fascinating. Like people have all these different systems, from using Post-it notes that they peel off for absolutely everything they do. So they get one piece of paper, have like 20 Post-it notes for everything they're going to do that day, and they just like the feeling of ripping it off, right? Like, and there's all these different, the bullet journals, all of that. I'm just very like classic. I write things either on the day or the next day or the next month, but I read it every morning to make sure I know where my head is at for that day.
And when do you make the list? Do you make it the night before or the week before?
Usually the week before, to be quite honest. Okay. Especially with writing, I find if I need to interview somebody, if I need to edit, it's just nice to kind of get everything in a line to understand what I need to do. But in the same vein, I have to be flexible, because I was just talking with somebody about the act of writing or of any art, and we're not always good at it every day. I don't think the arts are something that can be as predictable as the sciences. Like my creative mind is not as creative on certain days. And if I wake up, I have to be honest with myself. If I'm just having one of those days, I could either waste my own time and write, and then I'm gonna have to rewrite it the next couple of days, or I can use that day as a planning day, right? Like to plan out articles, to do the interview, but not necessarily actually construct it into anything.
Makes sense.
That sort of thing.
So then what you're doing then is that you're actually creating a to-do list, not like you're not saying from like 8 to 9 on Monday, I'm doing this tonight.
Exactly.
There's a lot of variability when it comes to creativity.
There has to be.
Right? Because you have to be inspired.
Yes.
So then what inspires you? Like what gets your juices going? And can you trigger that?
I don't think you can trigger it.
You can't trigger it?
Yeah.
Okay, so what inspires you?
Oh gosh, well, I just think it's being in the right mindset. It's feeling healthy, it's feeling calm, and it's feeling well rested. Like having all of those things in place allows me to kind of burst into the kind of language that I need to in order to make somebody want to read. Especially in today's day and age, people don't want to read.
That's right.
So I feel like as a writer, we have to be even more grabbing from the beginning.
Right.
It's not something that you can just kind of meander into a sentence, into a paragraph.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly the title of your book actually does that.
Yeah.
It certainly does grab people, as it grabbed me.
Yeah.
Okay. So mindfulness, 2.
Mindfulness for PMS.
For PMS.
Hangovers.
And
other
other
real world situations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about this book.
I started writing a column for a magazine on mindfulness moments almost 10 years ago. Like it was a while ago, and I would just write all these kind of funny moments, because I was realizing I was teaching yoga and meditation, but I was also living in Toronto, and I was on the TTC, and like crammed in, with everybody else. And I was thinking, man, like I'm not feeling very relaxed and I teach meditation. How is everybody else feeling, right? Like this is very, very stressful. So I thought this would be good to write mindfulness experiences for the real world instead of just, sitting there in a meditative posture, which is beautiful. Like I love that practice. But when we're really stressed or when life is happening, I thought it would be great to write. So I wrote these little vignettes. And then 6 or 7 years later, I talked to that magazine. I asked if they would mind if I took those pieces back, because kind of if you sell something to a magazine, they basically own your words. So they let me have that my writing back, and then I pitched it, and it actually very quickly got taken by a New York publisher. So that was really very, very exciting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you did that when?
When I was in Philadelphia, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I thought I'm in the US, so if I need to, and Philadelphia is very close to New York, so I thought if I need to go to New York to meet anybody or to sell myself, I'm right here. So
right on.
This is the time to do it.
And what's the essence behind the book?
The essence are these little moments in life when we don't think that we can be mindful, when we have the tendency to be mindless, to actually have a moment to pause, even in the moments where we don't feel like we can.
Okay. And you go through what, like tips and tricks? Like, is it life hacks?
They're all little chapters. So they're all like the mindfulness for the TTC, mindfulness for when you found that your ex is on your Instagram account, mindfulness for when, like all of these moments where we're just not thinking, to try to bring a little bit of, and thinking is the wrong word, because mindfulness is not necessarily about that, but just maybe awareness into what we're doing in our day-to-day lives, because I think it's so easy to be unaware right now.
Okay, so for those of us that don't know what mindfulness is, I know because I've looked into it, but I mean for those of us that don't, can you explain to us what mindfulness is?
It's purposeful paying attention. That's basically like the easiest way of saying it. So purposeful paying attention to what you're doing at any given moment. And I think in some ways it's the opposite of multitasking. Okay. Right? So we often do 8,000 things at once, and our culture really glorifies that. But in some ways, if we do just one, and we can do it really well, no matter what that is, whether it's having a conversation with somebody or making a meal or doing our job. If we're not having our minds on everything all the time, it can help us to be more effective and I think more successful.
So let's say someone's on the TTC, and they're cramped and they're sweaty people and it's hot and it's very uncomfortable. Yeah. So what's mindfulness gonna do, and how can someone be mindful at that point?
I think you can be mindful at that point by noticing like what is your reaction and what can you control at that moment. You can't control the heat. You can't control who's around you and how they smell. You can't control any of that, but you can control how you respond, how you breathe, even how you stand. Because we can stand in these very contracted, very rigid, and almost defensive positions, and that can really affect our mental state. So I think by opening up our bodies, by breathing, by taking a moment to check in, I'm really upset. Does this have to do with this situation, or is it because I'm just tired? And I just really want to get home and I've worked too much this week. Understanding yourself can really help yourself in these moments. And even though I'm not saying like mindfulness takes away anger or discomfort or anything like that, it helps us from getting to those extremely heightened positions. Because I think the very, very heightened positions happen because we aren't paying attention to ourselves and they just run into us.
Right.
Yeah.
And we let our worries carry us through.
Yes.
As opposed to us stopping and actually analyzing why we're feeling whatever we're feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because I do find myself sometimes as I'm experiencing whatever it is, I always ask myself, okay, what am I experiencing? Why am I experiencing it? And I try to analyze it. So I'm like, okay, is it because this is happening in the business? Is it because this person said this to me? And so then as soon as I isolate it, then all of a sudden then I can take that and just put it to the side and just focus on whatever I need to focus on. Is this mindfulness?
Absolutely. So are you just doing this naturally? This is just something that that's incredible. Okay. A lot of people need actual training, in order to have that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I found that as part of because starting this business it's all new to me. Okay, all 100% new to me. So so I had to find something in order for me to cope with all the stresses that come with running a business.
Yes.
So for me, it was either break down, you know what I mean? Just like start crying, just like lose my,
Option
lose
A.
my mind. Or I could try to dissect it and see, why am I feeling like this? You see what I mean? So am I feeling like this because, let's say, someone said something negative to me, or because I didn't, or the patient wasn't happy, or the vendor needs their money now. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on in my mind? And once I isolate that, then it's like, okay, I got it. No worries, I'll deal with it in a sec.
Yeah.
Let's focus here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was actually losing sleep at some point, right? And I was like, that's not healthy.
No.
I need to figure this out.
Yes.
And so then once I figured it out in my mind, I'm like, okay, that was good. Now I can sleep well. Yeah.
And our lives, I think, are always in a cycle where we have moments where we sleep well, we don't sleep well, we sleep well, we don't sleep well.
Right.
Things are going well, they're not going well. And whenever we get very comfortable, I find like the next round comes around and we have to have a new sense of self-realization.
Right.
It's not like we can just get to know ourselves once and be
Right.
like, I'm done.
Right. Right.
That would be nice,
That's
but
right.
That's not really how it is.
Well, I mean, if you're growing with life, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're growing with life, you're constantly changing.
Yeah.
So you're constantly rediscovering yourself.
Yes.
Right? So you're not the same person. If you're the same person, you're probably just sitting on the couch watching TV.
Exactly.
Right? But if you're growing, you're doing something different every day, then you're going to co-discover yourself every single time.
It's true.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
with this mindfulness book, so if I were to go and pick it off the shelf, what am I expecting? What should I expect from that book in order? What am I looking forward to?
Yeah, it's all broken kind of into there's a section for technology, there's a section for family life, like that sort of thing. So you can kind of look at the book in terms of what you're dealing with at that moment, stress-wise. My friend said that she uses it like tarot cards, where she just kind of like goes through it and goes to a random page and then takes the wisdom from that page for the day.
Okay.
That's kind of how she's used it. I thought that was cool because that wasn't my intention, and I think it's very interesting to see how people take your work in a way that you never really expected.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so tell us about the second book.
The second book is my more serious book. It's a mindfulness for surviving life's challenges, and a lot of it's about emotional or physical pain, and how you can get through basically each day, each hour, each minute when things are really, really tough. Because I was realizing as well that in a lot of the mindfulness and meditation that I taught, it was kind of well designed for people who can sit well in a chair and who can, feel comfortable in their bodies. But there's a hell of a lot of people who aren't. And I was one of them for a time. And I think it put me in that mindset of being uncomfortable. To realize that there has to be another way that we can shift our minds where we don't go down the negative spiral that can come with emotional or physical pain. Because all of this organizing and planning, all of this is coming from me being in a very positive mindset. But if I wasn't there, I feel like I understand the people who can't necessarily get all of these things done in a day. So sometimes it is just a matter of taking one day.
Okay.
So that's it's a lot more of a different turn for me, but it's the book covers look very similar. The chapters are laid out in the same way, where it's take a chapter, look at it, figure it out. It is just very well designed. I have a couple. I used to teach yoga to the elderly. And I have a couple of friends from that time, and one of my friends is in his 90s, and he said, this is the book that relates to him a lot more. Because he said it's just, he said getting out of bed in the morning when you're over 90 is sometimes hard. So, and to have somebody who's just young and saying like, just think positive thoughts, like nobody wants that. Right. So yeah, so I'm trying to give a little bit of a different, deeper spin. From my experience, I had a severely herniated disc to the point where I couldn't walk for a very long time, and it just shifted because I've always been very fit, very capable. I worked in gyms for so many years, and it just made me realize another side of life. So while I was in the midst of my pain struggle, I decided to write. And then when I finished whatever it was, I took it back to my publisher, and she said, "This is a book," and so I just kind of started moving it into a book. But I also thought I need to write this while I'm in it, because even now I don't think I could be in that same mindset.
Right. That's true.
Because right now I'm feeling great.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's good.
Yes.
Okay, so when did you have this experience?
2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what, you finished writing the other book and then you got herniated disc?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I finished publishing the other
Publishing,
book. Yeah,
sorry.
so
Yes.
like that's a whole process. I'd written it well before. But
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so what, it just came all of a sudden? Like it was
Yeah.
Like you didn't have any symptoms that like
No, well, it came because I gave birth, and that occasionally sometimes happens sometimes during the birthing process.
I see.
It's not common, but it happens
I got
sometimes.
you. I got you.
Just by the position of the baby and all of that.
Right.
And I was one of the unlucky ones.
Right.
And obviously that's a very specific situation, but I do believe that pain and emotional pain, there is something universal about
Of
it.
course.
And it was a way of me connecting to people. One of my friends read it and she said she was going through a lot of emotional pain, and my physical pain stuff really resonated with her emotional pain. And I thought it is very interesting. I love how people are connected in the best of times and the worst of times if you really look for threads.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, pain is pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And joy is joy.
That's
and
right.
like all of this, like
That's
we can get each other.
And so what, do you go through, like you said, mindfulness? Mm-hmm. So do you go through strategies for certain situations when someone's encountering them?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And for the pain one, it's just specific things, like when you are having trouble smiling because you've had a really bad couple of days, or when you're having trouble.
So walk me through that.
All of that. Oh gosh, what did I write in that chapter? I'm not remembering exactly that chapter, but in terms of like if you're having trouble smiling, it is just a matter of not necessarily painting a sunny picture, but sometimes it's about being in your body and noticing if there's anything that doesn't hurt, if there's anything in your life that isn't difficult, because when you are in the downward spiral, you're just focusing on this hurts and I can't do this and what has been taken away from me.
Right.
So it's a matter of, even if you can find one thing that is going okay for you, and it can be as simple as like your cat is sitting on your lap and you feel content with that. That is a very transformative thing.
Right.
And it's also not expecting people who are going through difficult things to go from like 0 to 60 like overnight.
Right.
It's like that's enough. And also recognizing that those little bits of enough can build us up to be who we once were.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. I think when we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, both in our career, like what we were talking about at the beginning with like organizing and doing too much in a day, and it's also if we're trying too much to recover, sometimes I feel like we won't, because it's much better to take these little micro steps to move ourselves in the right direction, whether it's mentally or physically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's actually really interesting because I've been very like high strung on like this concept of focusing on the cup being half full, and just the focus of that really like it changes lives. And so like for instance, let's say I burn my hand on the stove, and it's right now it's burning, so I get pain receptors being sent to my brain telling me this hurts. Well, I can either, like you said, go down that spiral where I'm focusing on my hand. I can either do that, or I can say, look, the rest of my body's good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everything else is good.
Yeah.
This one here is not so good.
Yeah.
So let's not conflate it and let's not make it worse than it is. And just realize, okay, now I have to deal with this, but don't think, oh, that's bad. My eye hurt last week. Now I'm falling apart. I don't know where my life is going, and then just yada yada yada. Okay,
because and we all have these minds that can do that, right? Like no matter how evolved we are or intelligent we are, we all have these minds that can do that.
Right.
So there is an essential fact to recognizing that we can have some choice even when things feel like they've fallen apart.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. We can have some choice even if something seems like it's falling apart.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. So those two books, where can people get them?
They're everywhere, basically. They're at Amazon, they're at Indigo, they're at Barnes & Noble in the US.
Nice.
Nice. They're everywhere.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be including those book titles and links so you can go and get them as soon as obviously you finish watching this podcast. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your adventures and very exciting adventures from from the time that you started taking them.
Yeah, I started taking adventures. My first like big adventure was when I walked into a hostel in Canterbury, England. I just thought it was a cool place. I really got along with the owner, and then he said, I actually want to leave for a little while. Like, do you want to take over this hostel? And I was 23, and I was like, yeah, yeah, I do want to do that. So I got a temporary visa. I moved to England. I knew nobody, and I just decided to run a hostel for a while. And I met, just from that experience, you meet people from all over the world,
yes.
And it expands your horizons in this beautiful way. Even though for a while I was stuck in the hostel because I didn't hire anybody for a few months, and then I did, which made a huge difference. But for the first couple months, I was just stuck in this one place, and my whole experience with the outside world were people coming through, telling me where they had been, where they were from, and so I was almost dependent on their stories.
Wow.
So
for excitement and
exactly until I could actually get out.
So how did you end up in England?
Yeah, I was just traveling through, and then
Okay.
it just happened. Like I just kind of was offered a job, and
so was it
I
after
came
school?
back. It was after school. I finished university. Yeah.
Okay, so after university, you went on a trek.
I went on a trip which was supposed to be a short trip, but then ended up kind of defining my 20s.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you manned this hostel. Okay.
I did that for a while. Yeah.
Okay.
Then I worked at the University of Kent in Canterbury because I did have a lot of experience in like banks and all of that stuff. My math, my math part of me came into play. So I worked at the University of Kent for a while, which was a really beautiful, beautiful university. Like you had to walk past like cows and this beautiful English countryside, and I'm sure you know, like beautiful, like campuses are, I think, the nicest
That's
thing,
right. Yes.
I love university campuses.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Yeah. So that was a great experience. And then I decided to come back to Toronto for a little bit, and I thought I'll work for a travel industry because of the fact that travel had just seemed to be calling my name. And I thought I could either be one of those people who backpacked and lived on, $10 a day, or I could get paid to travel. So I was like, I'm going to try to get paid to travel. Yeah. And so I did get a job in the travel industry. And
doing what?
I was a senior airline inventory manager. I ended up kind of helping groups go to different countries, but I worked with the airlines directly. So I was negotiating deals with different airlines for groups.
Okay.
And we were the biggest like language school in the world, so it was a very like interesting job. But I thought I'll move back to Toronto to do that, and then within months of me moving to Toronto, maybe 5, they wanted me to move back to Europe they wanted one Canadian member to go to Europe to kind of represent Canada, and they asked me to go. So I was like, I'm not meant to live in Canada.
I keep escaping.
They just don't want me to be here.
Yeah.
So I went and I lived in Switzerland for 4.5 years.
Wow.
And that was a great
Look
experience.
at that. Okay.
Yeah.
And you skied and you...
I did a lot of skiing.
Yeah.
I'm not a good skier.
No?
Yeah, I'm not a good skier. I took snowboarding lessons for the first time when I was living there. Do you snowboard or ski?
I do.
Okay.
I snowboard.
Yeah, I love snowboarding. It's funny, when you learn as old as I was at the time, you can't be possibly that good at it.
You have to be gentle
I just kind of fell down the Alps basically every week, but it was great.
At least you got a good view.
I did,
Right?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so then after that,
so while I was there, I was in the expat community, and we all lived in Lucerne, Switzerland, which is like the very center, German-speaking part, but Swiss German, and Swiss German is not an easy language. Like High German, you can learn and it's written. Swiss German is basically just a spoken language, and I find spoken it's so hard to learn. So we were all basically fine at High German, but horrible at Swiss German, and therefore missing a lot of pieces as to what was going around us.
Okay.
So we kind of bonded over that. So we were all from very different countries, but we were like, we have horrible Swiss German, let's hang out. So then a lot of these people were interested in yoga. I had a yoga practice for a very long time. I just woke up every morning and unrolled my mat and did something. Sometimes it was meditation, sometimes it was a longer practice. And I just thought, somebody needs to have an English speaking or High German speaking yoga class in Lucerne, and it did not exist. And I was like, somebody's got to do it. And for years I was like annoyed, like somebody's got to come along and do this class. And then finally I thought, well, why can't I do it?
That's right.
So I thought I have to get my yoga teacher training. And so I went and got it, and I came back and I ended up teaching to the expats and getting the studio and working within the studio within the main area. And I got a whole bunch of classes very quickly.
Yeah, but you just skipped on something.
Yeah.
You went to Bangkok to learn?
Oh no, I went to Thailand to learn Thai massage.
Oh, massage.
Thai massage, yeah, that was part of it.
Where'd you learn yoga?
Yoga, that I learned in a lot of different countries. So like I started in Prague. That's where I got my first yoga teacher training certification. And then I got my second in the U.S. in New York, and then I got my third in Bali.
And all this time you were working for that agency?
I was. So I was doing I would do weekends away, I would do self-study, I would do all of that. So I'd in Europe they also give a nice amount of vacation, right? So like I would use it to learn.
Wow.
Yeah.
And all along you had in your mind that you're going to be a yoga instructor.
I just thought I'm going to be a yoga instructor to this subset of the population,
right?
Because like people wanted it, and I thought I wanted it too. So somebody's got to do it. So I thought I'll teach it.
That's so cool.
And so then it just went really well, and I loved it. So I thought, I'll do this. But then I thought I can't really do this in Switzerland. Switzerland's really expensive. You can't really live in Switzerland on a yoga teacher salary. But I thought I could probably live in Canada if I bring a bunch of people together and if I do this. And I know a lot of corporations. I've worked for a lot of corporations. I'll start by teaching the corporations basically. So that became my thing. I taught at the major banks in downtown Toronto and all of that, and the big language schools and all of that.
As a certified yoga instructor.
As a certified yoga instructor.
Okay.
And I had a lot of different trainings because I'm a learner. So like I had a lot of different classes for a lot of different age groups and a lot of different population sizes and that sort of thing. So yeah, I did that in Toronto for a while, which is when the mindfulness and the meditation, all of this started to come together because it became a big part of my life, but within a city. And I'm leading retreats, and I'm talking to all sorts of different people in a very different way. And it's so a lot of this seems very like disconnected, but I'm still so engaged with the idea of traveling and with being in the world. I think there's nothing more important that a young person can do.
Of course.
I'm very much, whenever I meet somebody who's young who doesn't know their next step, I'm like, just go somewhere.
That's right. That's right. Just take that leap.
Totally.
And you'll see where that will take you.
Totally. And it will take all of us somewhere different.
That's right.
But we need to sometimes get out of our comfort zone.
100%.
And I think it's very important to not necessarily just sit in our little cozy little bubble.
Well, I mean, growth is uncomfortable.
Oh, totally
right?
is. Yes.
I mean, what do we call pains when we're growing? Growing pains.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Growth is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So if you want to grow, get ready to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
And even coming here, like living in London a year ago, I moved here. I did not like it. I was just like, I'm not going to stay. This is just a matter of time. I had to, but then I reminded myself, this is not my first move. This is my like seventh move.
Right.
And I know that this happens every time. Like no matter where I am, that there is this moment where I think I have to go, and I have to go back to what I knew because that was better.
That's familiar.
Yeah, and of course you think that's better, but it's but yeah. So, but I who knows? Like down the line, I could be somewhere else. I'm not somebody who would say I'm going to be in London for 20 years.
Got you.
Because if it had stopped me from growing or from learning or whatever, then I'll have to go somewhere else. But right now, I think it's an absolutely amazing place to live. I just think there's a lot of cool people that are attracted to this city.
There are a lot of cool, very unique people here.
Yeah.
And so then what? Because of your flexibility with your work, you can basically move wherever you want.
My life would allow that, and I have been very successful at getting like visas in different places.
Nice.
So I feel like if I needed to move somewhere else, I would for sure.
It wouldn't be a problem.
I also, when I was in Bali, I kept meeting people who went to Bali for like a trip and just never came back. Like Bali is filled with people who are sucked into Indonesia. They just can't.
Right.
They were like, I had a job back home, and now I'm here,
That's
meditating.
True. Yeah.
So you realize that there's so many different ways of living. Like there's the people that we hang out with kind of reflect themselves back on us, right? And we sometimes think that's the only way that life can be lived.
Because we don't see anything else.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's true.
Exactly.
That's
so
awesome.
Where have you lived? Where did you do your training?
So for dentistry, I went to Australia for dentistry.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so I was going to say, even Australia, there are a lot of people that actually went from Canada to Australia to study there, and they stayed there.
Yeah.
Right? Because Australia is gorgeous.
It is, yeah.
Right? But I mean, I came back because I'm the only son, so I had to take care of my family.
Okay.
But I mean, besides that, I definitely would have stayed there.
Yeah.
100%.
Which part of Australia?
Sydney.
Oh, nice.
Sydney. But I mean, anywhere in Australia is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, never mind you all the spiders and all the scorpions and the snakes, whatever. I mean, come on now, like there are still all these people that are living happily and they're alive in Australia, right? So I mean, if it was such a dangerous country, then everyone would have
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like no one would have lived there.
Yeah.
So So no, it's a very beautiful country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So weather, in terms of their vegetables and fruits, are par none.
Oh, cool.
I haven't tasted a better vegetable or fruit anywhere in the world.
Wow.
Except in Australia.
Yeah.
Their coffee is this is not coffee.
Yeah, I know.
You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is not coffee.
No.
Australian coffee is unreal. Starbucks started opened there and closed really shortly afterward.
Wow.
Yeah, because how can you compete with such you have like bistros everywhere, and each one is competing against the next one, so they're all like on a different level.
Yeah.
Right? And it's phenomenal. If you want to go there just for coffee, it's worth it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
You're a coffee drinker?
Yes.
You would be because you're right.
I love coffee.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay, so tell us, what are you planning to do for the next, so now you're a writer. Okay, so what are you planning to do for the next 5 to 10 years?
I want to do some more online stuff, both with meditation to offer like mindfulness, either workshops or even just little vignettes of like, I used to do little recordings of meditations, but I would just send them to my students. I would like to make them a little bit more available so that people could, every week have something different that's a little bit more attuned to that. So I want to do a little bit more of that online platform. And I would also like to kind of do some little pop-ups. They used to have, when I lived in Philadelphia, they had all these amazing wellness pop-ups that were just like incredible. They were so well designed. I thought we need to do something like that here. So I would like to contribute to that in a little way to get new people into the world of mindfulness or yoga.
By pop-ups, you mean like booths?
No, not necessarily. Like they could be in like a really like on a rooftop patio. All of a sudden it's available just that night, and it becomes this whole yoga room, and they invite a DJ, and there's all this cool stuff. People have to sign up for it in advance. But like I would love to do something like that here, where it just makes it cool and fun and interesting. But it's not also like, oh, you have to come every week.
Right. I got you.
Yeah.
Right.
And that just suits my person. And in Philadelphia, I was just so into it. I thought it was the coolest thing. Yeah. So I'd love to do that.
Okay, so you're gonna do pop-ups?
Yep.
You're gonna write more books?
I'm definitely writing more books.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to do right now, because I'm in the throes of motherhood, I would like to do one for parents.
Okay.
So that's
and is it going to be around the theme of mindfulness?
It will be mindfulness for parents, yeah.
Okay.
Because man, like when your toddler's melting down, like
of course.
just not
of course.
necessarily.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
And that one will take off like that.
Yeah.
Because as new parents, I'm sure, like you want to read as much of that stuff as possible,
you do,
right? And you want
yeah.
to read it from people who's experienced it,
absolutely,
so that you can calm yourself down,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is normal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's awesome.
So that will probably be my next one. But yeah, I have written a book of fiction. It still needs to be shaped more. I wrote it like 5 years ago, and it just needs some fine tuning. But once I've absolutely fine tuned it, I'm going to start pitching that as well.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
wow, look at you.
Yeah.
Just books.
I write a lot, yeah.
and then pop-ups, and you said you're going to have the online...
this is just if you're asking for my 5-year goal, that's my like far-reaching goal, because that's been in my head for a while.
Right.
Once my son is in like school full-time, I'll be able to contribute to all of that.
That's right. And okay, just want to ask you, so does that restrict you? Because your son now has to go to school. Does that restrict you that you can't really move around as much as you want to?
Not necessarily. necessarily. I think it depends on your kid's personality. He
Okay.
likes to travel. Like
Oh.
even already at the age of 2, he loves being in like new environments and that sort of thing. But I've heard other people with their kids, they just freak out right? when they're
That's right.
not in their traditional environment. But
Oh, wow.
he
You're lucky.
likes it. So no, I don't know necessarily. Obviously I don't think I would move him away when he was like a teenager. But I think before you're a teenager, I don't know. This is me. I just think it's pretty flexible. Most of my friends in life have come from the teenage years beyond.
I got you.
So I don't think it's essential that we keep our childhood friends.
Right.
I think it can be a good experience to go
Of
somewhere
course.
else instead.
Especially now
Yeah.
with social media. I mean,
That's
you
true.
You can be connected
That's true.
really easily.
Yeah, back in
Yeah.
my day, like if
Yeah.
we left, it
Yeah,
was
that's
like
it.
that
It's
was
done.
it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Thank
being on the
you.
podcast. Honestly,
Yeah.
it was very enlightening.
Yeah.
I mean, mindfulness is something that I've read about, but only recently started to really like put into practice. But it wasn't something because I've read. But it's just something I had to do. So,
Yeah.
so it's really cool that you actually written about that and to the benefit of people. And I'm sure a lot of people are benefiting because of it. So thanks again. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Thank you guys for tuning in to Discover with Sbenati. For those of you that are watching the YouTube, I haven't said that before, but make sure you give that a nice thumbs up and you subscribe and tell your friends about it. And for those that are listening on the podcast, thank you for listening and stay tuned for the next exciting episode.